Subspace was definitely one of the most interesting stories in gaming history, and that it is most likely the largest gaming crossover story out there. To this day, we've yet to see Smash Bros explore a story of this level again, leaving us with this story alone to reflect on. Welcome to the first episode in a brand new series called Challenge Mode, the show where I beat games in incredibly challenging and strange ways for you all to enjoy my misery. I've been streaming for over 2 years now, and over that time I have done some incredibly crazy challenges on stream, a lot of which are things nobody would ever even consider. To start out this series, we're hopping into one of the most well-known games out there, Super Smash Bros, and we'll be hopping into Brawl's Subspace Emissary. Well, a normal person may simply hop into it, but I'm far from normal. So for this first episode, we're going to be playing through Subspace Emissary on intense difficulty using a controller of a Cabela's Wii rifle. Spoiler alert for the story of Subspace Emissary. Also, keep in mind this was done just before Smash Ultimate came out as a form of celebration, and for some reason back then I had the stupid mindset that having all sorts of junk on the screen was a good idea. Roll the intro! Super Smash Bros Brawl is the third entry into the Smash Bros series, and was released on the Wii in early 2008. In previous entries, there had never been a true dedicated single-player mode, being largely minigames and challenges instead. In this entry, players saw what is still the only dedicated story mode in the history of the series. Ultimate has World of Light, but at the end of the day it's like a majorly toned-down version of Subspace. In terms of telling a serious story, this may well be the biggest crossover in gaming history. It was a truly incredible tale for players to experience, mostly because of how many characters played a role. One moment you could have Lucario discovering Solid Snake, or Marth and Meta Knight battling as enemies only to find that they share a common foe, which is an awesome cutscene by the way. Or you could have Mario and Pit meeting and duking it out with Yoshi and Link, who Mario doesn't recognize for some reason. All these different characters with very different stories of their own exist within the same world as this story unfolds, occasionally banding together, or turning against one another as enemies. The story takes place mostly through these various groups, each having their own trials and tribulations, and meeting more allies and coming together as the story goes on. This is a story told without any words, at all. Every character turns into a silent protagonist, or antagonist, even those who weren't in their original games. The story is spoken through actions rather than words, through facial expressions, stances, or Ganondorf pointing on the map where he wants Bowser to get him some ice cream from. No, not actually. Our story begins with Mario and Kirby duking it out in a friendly 1v1 match, until the stadium is attacked by none other than Halberd, Meta Knight's ship, with Wario leading the attack. With him is a weapon that allows him to transform the other fighters into trophies, which can later be reverted with a touch. Mario is launched away, while Peach and Zelda are captured, with the player as Kirby deciding which of the two to save. At the end of the attack, a subspace bomb is detonated, transforming the entire area into subspace, with Kirby narrowly escaping with either Peach or Zelda. Here begins our story for this group and many other unlikely duos, such as Link and Yoshi, Fox and Diddy Kong, Samus and Pikachu, or perhaps my favorite, Lucas and Pokemon Trainer. The gameplay of Subspace plays out mostly how you'd expect typical Smash Bros to. The more you get hit, the higher your percentage goes. The higher your percentage goes, the farther you get launched. When you're launched off the screen, you lose a life. Except for boss battles against other playable fighters, this is not the case for your enemies in Subspace, who will typically have health bars that you need to bring to zero in order to defeat them. The stages are often somewhat recognizable areas from within the worlds of these characters, with featured music being OST or remixes from their games of origin. Listening to Sticker Brush Symphony while exploring through the DK stages? Now that's nice. To those who've played the games these characters are from, this music is nostalgic, and hearing these remixes as they go through these stages becomes a mix of freshness and memories of old adventures. The stages themselves are typically relatively straightforward, with the occasional side route to find some collectibles from time to time. All in all, this makes for an overall incredibly satisfying experience, and is in one way the definition of a feel-good story, with the perfect mix of a feel of new and nostalgia. The challenge. Now that's a different story, which is anything but satisfying. The Cabela's Wiimote rifle has the Wiimote on top of the barrel, while the nunchuck is occupying the spot for the trigger. you still have access to every button on the controller, just in very unconventional ways. For one, you can never properly hold the Wiimote, needing instead to hold the barrel and curve your thumb around to hit buttons such as A. The B button, however, is in the barrel, and you need to pump the controller in order to hit B. So whenever you want to do a special attack, whether for a recovery, for an attack, or what have you, you need to physically pump the barrel in order to make that happen. The shield button on the nunchuck being the trigger, however, is relatively easy to hit, but in this run, you'll not be using your shield a whole lot, which brings us into the second part of this challenge, the game difficulty. Intense difficulty feels very untested, considering one hit will usually mean you're now past 50%. The bigger enemies or minor bosses can typically one-shot you, and holding shield against certain attacks will mean a broken shield even when it started full. This all combined with the awkward control scheme makes for an experience that's difficult in terms of the game itself, and difficult in terms of you being able to do the inputs you intend in time. Out of the two aspects of the game difficulty or the controller difficulty, the more difficult one is honestly the game difficulty. To be fair, I actually had plenty of experience playing Smash Bros with this controller prior, where I would get countless clips of Jigglypuff on 4 Glory and Smash 4 on stream for the sake of entertaining content. So by this point, I was honestly more or less used to using this as a Smash controller, so that aspect didn't wind up holding me back as much as it would have had this been my first experience with this controller. The game difficulty, however, feels straight up unfair. 2 or 3 hits and you've lost a stock. Against the mini-bosses, 1 hit and you've lost a stock. You need to be able to play incredibly patiently, trying to take as few unnecessary hits along the way, but will wind up finding a lot of resets regardless. Luckily, there are semi-frequent checkpoints, so you don't have to worry about losing too much progress when you fail, which is a lot. It's a challenge with incredible difficulty, but as long as you're patient enough, you can get through it eventually. Ooh boy, were there some major roadblocks along the way for this challenge. Pretty much every stage was a roadblock of its own, but the most notable ones were definitely the bosses. Getting hit once will typically deal anywhere from 30 to 50% to you if it doesn't kill on the spot, with some moves even killing at 0. Essentially, you're never safe. You have to try to avoid or shield every attack, or hope that if you do get hit, it's by one of the attacks that deals big damage with next to no knockback. When you try to avoid attacks though, the more you move, the greater the chance of you tripping and being open to attack, a mechanic exclusive to Brawl. When you shield, which does protect you from several attacks, if the boss chooses to use one of their stronger attacks, they can potentially break your shield on the spot, which often means death depending on which move the boss chooses next. As for the playable character bosses, the AI on them is literally insane. You make a tiny mistake or unsafe option, they will punish you. You in the middle of comboing them, they'll somehow punish you. They hit incredibly hard and make it very difficult to get hits in yourself. There's a reason you have 4 lives against their 1. They play very, very strange a lot of the time, but in just the perfect way for it to work for them. You get in a quick jab or a tilt, and they will perfect shield and immediately punish you. A lot of the time, the AI will even change what they're doing after they've already committed to an attack or action based on what you've done during that time. Several bosses summed up to attempting it until the boss found a way to kill themselves. The most difficult bosses though were typically the multi-enemy ones, oftentimes with most of your stocks lost by the time you make it to the last few enemies who are the toughest. Even the enemies before the final ones, usually a good 2 or 3 hits will be the undoing of that life, meaning several of these bosses took a great many attempts. With enough determination and patience, however, there was nothing that couldn't be conquered. If you'd like to try this challenge yourself, you'll need either a Wii or a Wii U, a Wiimote rifle, and the game, obviously. My Wiimote rifle of choice is the shotgun kind, as you need to pump the barrel to hit the B button, which adds to the difficulty, but there are various kinds of Wiimote rifles out there, some easier to find than others. The controls do take a good while to get used to, but after you've been using it for a while, you may be able to play at close to the same skill level as if you were using a Wiimote and nunchuck without a peripheral. Now, Subspace on intense difficulty is hard, and I mean really hard. You will need a lot of patience in order to complete this challenge without quitting somewhere along the way. In each level, you will typically get 4 stocks, You choose which character you want to play as first, and then it cycles through the available characters that you have on the mission. So if it's a team of 2, that means 2 stocks each. In a team of 3, that means that the first one you choose will get 2 stocks, while the other ones get 1. So in teams of 3, be sure to choose your best character first. And speaking of best character, be sure to abuse the hell out of Meta Knight, and always select him first in teams of 3 to ensure he gets 2 stocks. Meta Knight's attacks are incredibly quick. You can get so many up airs in at once, it honestly makes me wonder how this got into the game in the first place. Don't hesitate to rely on him. I know I sure did. Checkpoints happen every once in a while as you trek through the stages, the most obvious checkpoints being each new area of a stage, with Get Ready appearing on the screen. If you enter a new area like this and are missing some stocks, feel free to lose your other ones so that you can respawn with all stocks returned, and you have a better chance of making it to the next checkpoint. The main big bosses will break your shield frequently, which can be better than getting hit if they decide to use a non-killing move next, but a lot of the time, you should also be trying your best to avoid the attacks rather than holding shield. A lot of attacks are very difficult to dodge properly, so don't be afraid to rely on shield, just be aware that the consequence is it will break from time to time. The fighter bosses are frankly BS, just throw yourselves at them until you eventually win. If you choose to attempt this challenge, I wish you the best of luck, because trust me, you'll need it. With the heroes finally banding together throughout the story, they attack Ganondorf and Bowser's subspace fleet. Ganondorf then betrays Bowser and turns him into a trophy for the sake of his true master, Master Hand. However, it turns out that Master Hand is being controlled by another being, known as Taboo, who then proceeds to turn all of the heroes and Ganondorf into trophies. Meanwhile, outside Subspace, King Deity's special buttons he gave to Luigi and Ness are able to revive them, and then they revive the king. It seems quite possible that King Deity was unaware that the trophies he had were actually people, and he seems rather thrilled that they're all together. With this small group as the last survivors, they tackle Subspace, and eventually enter the final challenge, known as the Great Maze, in a quest to save all the other fighters. While previous stages have been almost completely linear, the Great Maze is anything but that. It has several branching paths, with each area being reflective of an area from the adventure up to this point. Here you will be fighting several dark versions of the fighters, kind of like World of Light, except with very wacky AI as always in Subspace. The game provides you with a map of the maze of every area you've entered thus far, with you being able to see which doors you have not yet taken so you know where there's new territory to explore. You will be doing a lot of backtracking to get to areas you have not yet explored, and facing several previous bosses. Directly in the center of the Great Maze is the gate to Taboo. However, you won't be able to pass through this gate until you've defeated every boss, both the fighter bosses and the giant bosses. Luckily, you can return to this room to see exactly how much you have left to do, as the room displays all fighters and bosses yet to be conquered. The entirety of this maze should easily be taking over an hour, an incredible final challenge to this Wiimote rifle challenge. Frequent checkpoints are the saving grace here, and like the rest of the stages before, you can make it through if you have the patience for it. Once this final stage is cleared, you can make it through the gate to the final boss Taboo. This time with every fighter now in tow, including the antagonist ones such as Bowser, Wario, and Ganondorf. Sonic also gets shoehorned in, because he's just been chilling here, I guess? With the entire cast up to this point in your arsenal, you get to select 6 fighters to take on Taboo, and he will absolutely burn through those lives. Several moves will one-shot, most others will two-shot. The most difficult attack to dodge is the one where he goes into the background and sends out several waves. The moment any one of these waves hits you, it's an instant kill. If you hold shield, you can't even be saved from this attack at the cost of getting hit by the next since your shield gets broken, because it once again instantly kills you. The best strategy to use here is to try timing spot dodges to dodge each of the individual waves. It's not impossible to dodge, but perfectly timing every spot dodge for several of these waves in a row, it's incredibly difficult to do. While other attacks are much easier to dodge, several will still one-shot. Get hit by the chain thing? Dead. Get hit by his weird dash thing? Dead. This boss will take several attempts, which combined with the difficult controls, as with the rest of this challenge, will require a lot of patience. But eventually, in my case with the power of sports, Taboo is finally defeated. Subspace finally closes, and peace is restored to the world. Wow, this was the first major challenge run I did on stream, and man was it a wacky time. What surprised me the most was that the game difficulty proved considerably more difficult than the controller I was playing it with, even with prior Wiimote Rifle Smash Bros experience I had. Subspace Emissary is a fantastic mix of a new adventure mixed with nostalgia, and some of the character team combinations are some of the most satisfying to see, especially for fans of those characters. The Subspace Emissary really was something special, and in the past I never really particularly wanted to see the return of it as much as some fans, but now I find myself hoping that the future will feature something like this again. It's the definition of a feel-good story, in that it just feels incredible to see all these beloved characters taking direct part in this plot. The Wiimote Rifle Intense Difficulty Challenge was intriguing, and luckily made very possible by the checkpoint system. Were there not checkpoints throughout stages, I doubt I would have completed this challenge. I honestly wouldn't recommend this challenge to anybody. Heck, I wouldn't even recommend Subspace on Intense Difficulty to anybody. Intense Difficulty is so poorly balanced, and with so much as 2 hits oftentimes meaning death, and boss fighter AI that feels like it's always doing the perfect actions to counter you. Subspace is definitely worth giving a shot, but maybe not on Intense Difficulty with a Wiimote Rifle kind of shot. I'd like to give a big thanks to Not So Formal and SmashBros64 for helping me out with various aspects of this video, links to them in the description below. This is my first time trying out this style of video. I had the idea after considering what kind of content I could make that factors in what's unique about the channel, and I thought about the wacky ways I do several of my playthroughs. This video is trying out that idea, and I wouldn't mind making this into an ongoing series, so be sure to let me know in the comments if it's something you'd like to see more of. I have plenty more past challenges that can be made into videos, such as beating Super Luigi U one-handed, or beating the genocide route to Undertale on PC while wearing oven mitts. Trust me, I do some crazy stuff. Thanks so much for watching the video. It really is an honor as a small content creator to be given a chance, and I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Challenge runs I do are streamed on Twitch, so be sure to stop by and hang out if you'd like to be a part of the shenanigans as they happen. With that, until next time, see ya.